And we have over here the brave people that came at Mesiras Nefesh to leave their wives home and clean. It's tremendous effort on your parts, and tremendous credit for those who let you go. That's if you asked for shus. In the saga of my continuing notebook, I found this one, which was very appropriate. It's what I used a couple of years ago for Pesach, which was Mamish Hashgacha, that I should find it today. I think that we should learn from my notebooks, not from me, but from my notebooks. Whenever I find a notebook and I say, this notebook I'm not going to lose, and I'm going to have it till I finish, and I never have it the next week. Yet despite that, I always think when I have a new notebook, this is going to be the notebook I'm not going to lose. So I think we have to learn from that how many times we fail, that's it. Me'ata v'yad olam halaluka. From now and on, halaluka. Now and on, it's a completely different world. I'll give you a little bit of advice. If you want to get more reshus to be able to leave, if you do things, if you mix up as we spoke earlier once, the microwave popcorn and the vacuum cleaner bag in the course of cleaning for Pesach, usually you get an invitation to leave the house and allow for things to take place. I finally learned today how to use the juicer. You put the juice, because you got to know, if you press it too hard, then you are online in the hardware store now for 6 hours to buy another one, because it burns out the gear. If you press it too loose, you don't get the juice or the pulp out of the orange or the lemon. So today, after much training by both my 10 and 9-year-old, who were getting a little tired, I finally got it at the right pressure. Problem was, they did not tell me that you're supposed to put a cup or some type of thing by the spout where the juice comes out. So again, I got one of those invitations to please help by exiting the house. Okay, the emes is that these days are very precious, and if we don't understand these days, we lose a great deal more than the juice that comes cascading out onto the floor. The Gra says every single day of Nisan is Rosh Chodesh. And Chazal tell us that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had a Talmud, that the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, speaks about his great virtues, and he left and returned to an area of possibly where he came from. The Gemara tells us where, after the time of Churban, and he just detached himself, and it was a place of tremendous idun, of tremendous, shall we say, shtickle, I don't want to use the wrong word here, but there was a very comfortable area and a lot of conveniences, and as a result, because he had engaged into such a comfortable mode, although Rebbe Elazar ben Arach was considered the greatest of the great, he forgot his learning, and instead of a chodesh azelachem, he taiched hacheresh hayaliba. So in other words, in the word hachodesh, he confused the dalet for a reish. HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, so he confused the letters in the word Hazeh, the Zayin and the Yud, and Libam instead of Lachem, he confused the Chaf for the base. The Kotzker Rebbe said that the difference between these letters is very, very little. The difference between a Reish and a Dalet is only a small piece. And the difference between Zayin and a Yud is only a small piece. The difference in the Chaf and the Beis is only a small piece, the extension of the Beis at the bottom right. There are times in our life where it looks like we're losing it, and we give up. And we don't realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't necessarily want us to re-grab it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to make an effort to hold on. And if you make an effort to hold on only to a little piece, then you retain what you had beforehand. So the Ben Ish Chai says the following mashal. There was a man who decided he wants to go learn in Kailul, even though he had a store. He called his wife in and said, you take care of the store. She said, I don't have much experience. Take care of the store. Okay. So she's standing there and the customer comes in and the customer says, I'd like to buy half of your inventory. And, can you please tell me the different qualities and what are the choices? And she shrugs. I don't know. So he leaves. And he comes back at the end of the day feeling very well accomplished in Kailul. He says to his wife, what happened today? She says, this guy came in. He said he wants to buy half the store, but I didn't know what to tell him. So he left. He goes, what's with you? What's the matter with you? Next time, call me. Call me. She said, when the bittul Torah, call me. Okay, so the next day the Rav comes by and he wants to give him Musar. He says, I have to give your husband Musar? he keeps promising money for Elias. He hasn't paid. He keeps talking in shul, and all sorts of things that are going on. And once and for all, I have to call him. So she goes and calls him. Says, "Come quick." He hears, "Come quick." He thinks it's that customer that's buying up half the store. And he races in to see the Rav there. And he goes, "No, no, no." And he goes, "For him, you call me. For the Muslim, you call me. For the customer, you leave me in shul." So the Ben Ish Chai says that that's pshat, that we're makriv on the Mizbeach, our chaylev and our dam. So the chaylev, the nature of chaylev is it slows the fire down. Chaylev represents fat. As you know, the more a person accumulates of that particular entity, the slower he tends to move. Dam, on the other hand, the person's blood is bubbling. That represents a kacharai. He says, in life, you have to know when you call the person and when you don't call the person. There are times that you have to apply dam, and there are times you have to apply chaylev. Don't call the person. Let's try to explain a little bit what the Ben Ish Chai says. There are times a person is in a mode of, I am it, and I am now about to conquer the world. So we tell him, slow down a shtickle. Don't conquer the world. Wow, one deal, another deal, one apartment building, another apartment building, office buildings in Manhattan. I'm taking over the world. So slow down. Slow down. You know that story that I've told you many times of a person that was like borrowing money from the entire town, remortgaging, refinancing, even the bank was confused already, and his wife says, "What are you doing? It's all going to crash. There's no money here." And he's leasing them fanciest cars, and he's draining and draining. You're not going to have money until the end of the month. You have to, for the next 3 weeks we can play hide and seek until they collect the car 6 months later, And he's going one credit card to the other credit card. Why are you doing this? Because I want to do good shidduchim for our children. If we do good shidduchim for our children, it's all worth it. And if you're rich, you do great shidduchim. So he builds up. It looks like he's a rich man. In reality, he owes the entire town money. He's going to get in big trouble full of his shemei dreis over there with his credit. And he does it, but it works. He does a shidduch with a real rich guy. He tells his wife, "You see it work?" Until they find out that the rich guy did the same thing he did. So now they were both royally in trouble. Could have saved a lot of tsaris if he would have just slowed down a little bit. You are who you are. So I heard this story from the Klozer Rebbe, the old Klozer Rebbe, Zechut Tzadik Levracha. He said about a man who was so aggressive with his chametz that he went and he burnt his house down. Just to make sure there is no chametz, he literally burnt his house down. And bought himself a brand new house, and he's sitting over there, and as he's sitting there and his wife brings in the soup, a bird comes flying in through the window and has a crumb in its beak. And it's clearly a crumb of chametz gomer, nice piece of pizza. It had the domino label still hanging from it, and drops it unceremoniously into his soup, and it lands there with a big splash. So he runs to his Rebbe and says, "What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me? I burnt my house down." And the Rebbe told him that the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want you to burn your house down. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to be normal. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to accept life as is, accept the risks that they are, and make the best of it. Don't be an oiber chacham. So just a little bit of an amendment to the story I think I told you last week. It says the first Baba of a Rav, his name was Shlomo, he was the son-in-law of the Divrei Chaim, or Einakol of Divrei Chaim, I'm not sure, but he came to Sir Baron Rothschild, and Baron is showing off the religious aspect of his life, and he shows him a big, beautiful palace, and that was his Pesach palace. Ever heard of a Pesach kitchen? He had a Pesach palace. There are armed guards that don't allow anyone to walk in here from Mitzrayim Pesach till Erev Pesach. This is chametz free. And of course, the administrators that came along with him were oohing and eyeing. And they were saying, "That's amazing, Sir Baron. That's so beautiful. That's so gorgeous. When you give us this gewaldige check for the yeshiva, we'll make sure to tell people. So if you can take out your gold lace big, checkbook and with your gold pen but the Rebbe, he said, and they said, no, Rebbe, don't do this to us. And Sir Baron said to the Rebbe, what? He says, the Zayde de Divrei Chaim was very machmir on Pesach, more so than anyone else could have possibly been machmir, and he didn't have a separate Pesach house. It's a simon that Hashem wants you to take your house and to clean it, not to go run off to someone else's house. And he added that you can only be yoitz of a mitzvah of matzah with something that potentially can become chametz. You can't be yoitz of matzah with rice cakes. Besides the fact that Ashkenazim don't eat rice because of kidneys, but you can't be yoitz of them, because in order to be yoitz of a mitzvah of matzah, It has to be something that potentially could become chametz. In other words, the Rabbi Shalom doesn't want us to run away and live in an imaginary world. The Rabbi Shalom wants to say, this is my life, and these are the risks to my life, and I have no guarantees, and I'm not out to conquer the world, I'm out to deal with who I am, and life has to go on. What does it mean, a midlife crisis? Right? The guy is 50 years old, he starts getting bald, gets to the point where he goes into the suspender age, if you know what I mean, and he buys himself a red convertible and blasts his music, and he's driving through the streets at high speeds because he's trying to convince himself that he's younger. What's his problem? Problem is an unwilling to accept who he is. But that doesn't mean when he was younger he enjoyed life. What's that famous what the person says, when I was a kid I was dying to get older, got to high school I was dying to graduate, got to graduate school I was dying to get my PhD, got my PhD I was dying to get my first job, dying to get married, dying to get my first condo in Florida, dying to get promoted, dying to retire, and now the person said he's dying. And I realized he never lived. There are two aspects in life that can destroy us. And one is when we think we're about to conquer the world and we have the perfect Eitzah, and for that we put our chaylev on the Mizbeach, slow the fire down a little bit. And there are times that we give up and we say it's never going to get any better, and for that you put the dam on the Mizbeach, says the Ben Ish Chai. That's the dam and the chaylev. And the person has to know which aspect he has to apply to the Mizbeach. Because life is a pendulum, it swings from one way to the other, and the Yetzirah will try to get us either on the chaylev side or either on the dam side. Either we are ascending too quickly or descending too quickly. And either way, we have to get into reality and say, no, I'm not conquering the world, and the world is not over. I don't have to be the president of the company, and even if I was fired after many, many years of my job, the B'nai Hashem closes one door and opens 10 others. You have to know what to push yourself up, what to push yourself down. That is the chaylev and the dam on the Mizbeach. So there was someone told me this story, that he had a business partner, and they were doing very well. He's a Gerachah, so they used to ask the Beis Yisrael, the Ger Rebbe, every question in business. His partner wasn't from, but he couldn't understand that this rabbi in Israel with a beard and sidelock somehow is, giving advice over here. So when he came to Eretz Yisrael, he brought his partner into the Beis Yisrael, and he said to the Beis Yisrael, he said to the Ger Rebbe, my partner asks you all his questions. He's a real chassid. I wanted to see a chassid and his Rebbe connects. So the Beis Yisrael said, he's no chassid. He said, call in Fivish. They called in Fivish, and we'll add some descriptions over here for the, imagine Fivish coming in with a smashed hat, one paya down, the other paya up to flick the beard, his toes sticking out of his shoes. And the Rebbe says, Fivish has been asking me business advice for the last 20 years. Every penny he invested, he lost. And Fivish still comes and asks advice. Fivish is a chassid. Your partner, Ham's fortune cookie. That's not the relationship between the Rebbe. Fivish lived. Fivish enjoyed life. Fivish has simchas achayim. The same Rabbi Leibel Eger, he was the Einikel of Rabbi Kiva Eger, and he came to Kotsk. He wound up in Kotsk. He not only became a Kotsk chassid, but he eventually became a Rebbe. They say that the Brisker Rav once was walking with his son, and his son said to the Brisker Rav, how could it be Rabbi Kiva Eger's Einikel should become a Kotsk chassid? So the Brisker Rav sat him down for an hour and explained to him what Kotsk was all about. So they got up, and then his son said, so why don't we all become Kotsk chassidim? So they say he sat him down for another hour to correct that. That's what they say. I don't know if this story is true, but I don't know. Well, they say that when Rabbi Aaron, Zechon Levracha, went with one of his Einiklach into the Beis Yisrael, so the Beis Yisrael gave him, he used to give apples, I think. So he gave the kid an apple, and the kid didn't want the apple. So the Rebbe said, no, looks like he's not going to be a chassid. And Rabbi Aaron said, no, say amen to the bracha. Okay. All right. That was just a sidebar here. Just an app. Let's get back to what every person has to know who he is. Every person has to know who he is. Hacheresh hayalibam could have very easily been a chodesh zelachem. You're just a mashu, just a realization that life has to be where I am, and I may not understand things. Why do I have to slow down if I can conquer the world, if I can buy another building? And why should I not give up if it looks like I don't have a chance to rebuild? But that's the chaylev and the dam and the mizbeach that the Rabbi Shem wants us to be makriv. So they say the story that there's this phone rings, and a young man picks up the phone. It's his father. lives in a condominium in Florida, says, I know it's before Pesach time, but we're not going to, we're really busy this year. And he says to him, listen here. He says to him, I didn't call you to invite you for Pesach. I gave up on that. But I want to tell you that I'm divorcing your mother. He says, what? He says, you're married for 60 years. But I've had it. And it's going to be a messy divorce, and I'm going to court, and I'm hiring the best lawyers. He goes, that's going to eat up my whole Yerusha. I mean, that's going to cost so much money. I mean, don't do that. Do me a favor, call your sister and tell her that this is the story. He hangs the phone, he calls his sister and says, you can't believe what's going on over here. That he just called her. This is crazy. She calls up, she goes, do me a favor. You're angry, don't do a thing. That me and my brother, we're both coming down to Florida with our families. We're going to be there over Pesach, and things are going to calm down. He turns to his wife and says, don't worry, they're both coming for Yom Tov, and they're even going to pay for their own airfare. You see? Rosh Hashanah will figure something else out. We don't know in life how the Rabbi Shalom sends us places. And we think we're going for one reason, and we are in the hands of Hashgacha. But when you know that I don't really know the reason that I'm going, I can only act on the best of my intuition at the moment. So we're not so terribly upset when things don't work out our way, because we're not sure what our way is, regardless. So the Rebbe of Melech once saw a bunch of Hasidim in a wagon traveling to Warsaw, and he yelled out, send regards to my father. They said to him, who's your father? They said, the Rabbi Shalom, your father also. Remember, when you're going to Warsaw on business, just bear in mind there's a Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat. Be honest. Understand what you're doing. And my Mashgiach Zalzan Gesund used to say, he was going to Eretz Yisrael. He said, it's so hard for you to travel. Why are you going? He said, listen, I have a mother there. You have a mother there? Yeah, Mama Rachel. Different way of looking at things. You know, a lot of times we don't know why our Father is calling us, and it seems very confusing to us. But only our Father knows how to get us to do things in life, and sometimes it's not so comfortable. But if we understand that we don't know, it takes a lot of the stress of life away. You pass by now almost every Beis Medrash, every yeshiva in the universe, so you are going to see a sign that says anything left over 30 days is hefker. I always wonder what happens with all those galoshes and rubbers and umbrellas. Like, there must be like millions of them, huge, big containers of... you get orders for containers, Menachem, for like all the galoshes and umbrellas from the hefker that's left over after 30 days now? Then we would have it, right. So the great big rubber and umbrellas placed in the sky. Now, the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't do that to us. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't say, hey, I gave you life, I gave you koichos, I gave you money. You didn't use it for over 30 days, so it's hefker. It doesn't work that way. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, you're going to have to use this. You're going to have to fulfill what your mission is down here on this world. And you can try to run away from it. You can try to be mafker, but it never gets hefker. When Rebbetzin Clinton first got her job as Secretary of State, so she went to Russia, and then the relationships between Washington and the Kremlin wasn't so good. So one of her PR people made her a button that she gave out. And I don't remember the exact words in Russian, but the button was supposed to say restart. We're restarting our relationship. But the translator did not do such a good job. Instead, the button said reload. Okay? So the end says, it comes Nisan. The Rebbeinu Shalom is reloading us. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives us new kaiches that we never had until now. Somebody once sent a letter to the Avnei Nezer, asked the Schachter Rebbe, asking him to come to a wedding. It was and he said, during Nisan, I don't go to weddings. I said, why don't you go to weddings during Nisan? He said, every hour is like a day. In the entire month of Nisan, every single hour is like a day. Or he said, every hour is like a month. Truth is, if you'll be driving in the Borough Park traffic tomorrow, you will understand what that means, that every hour is like a day. He said, Nisan, the Rebbeinu Shalom is reloading us, resetting us, reloading us. All those umbrellas that got lost, the Rebbeinu Shalom brings it back and says, here it is, and make sure you do the right thing with it now. And that's why, in a sense, that during the month of Nisan, what do? We clean our houses, we're taking inventory, we're cleaning everything. We're like re-examining every single thing that we own. And we are clarifying in our minds there is a purpose to this. And that's why the first 12 months of Nisan we read the Nesiim. And each Nasi of each Shevet comes up and makes a donation. And it looks like it's all the same donation, which is very good for the Baal Kaira because he doesn't have to prepare. It's the same Kairas, right? But it's not. The Torah repeats it 12 different times because to us it looks like each one of the Nesiim made the same donation. It's not. How could it not be the same donation if it says mamish the same thing? Because the Torah says no two people are ever in the same financial state, the same emotional state, the same matzav at home, same ruach. And if you get up there and you push yourself to say, okay, it's a new year, it's a new world, it's the trees are coming back alive. That means there's the morale that the world is coming back alive. Rabbeinu Shalom, forget what happened. I will try to be the best person that I am from here on in. It looks like to us everyone's giving the same thing. But the Rabbeinu Shalom understands each Mesiras Nefesh as something totally separate, something totally different. The Sons of Rav had a son, his name was Baruch of Garlitz. Baruch of Garlitz was very tough. He was they say a story that when he was a young boy in Simchas Torah, the minig was that they brought the Sefer Torah near the Ezras Nashim, and the women came with the little children, they kissed the Sefer Torah. And he was 7 years old, and she was holding the little Baruch the Rebbetzin, and she says, kiss the Torah. He said, no. Do you love the Torah? No. Now these aren't the things you find in those biographies, when you see the biographies of tzaddikim. And even when he was little, his mother asked him to kiss the Torah, and he said, no! You don't find that. But I'm not sure that that's right, because the reality is, if we learn that children are real, and they... So she was devastated. The kid doesn't want to kiss the Torah. Who knows? This is going to be the next, I don't know what. She starts crying and screaming, and her husband, the Sanzor, says, what's the problem? He says, et gesagt, will nicht kischen the Torah, gesagt, nicht leave the Torah, what's going to be with him? He says he doesn't love the Torah. What's going to be with him? And the Sanzor says, what's going to be with him? He's going to be an ish emes. He's not going to lie. He's going to speak the truth. And you'll see he'll use. So the Baruch Garlitz was an amazing ish emes, and he told people the way it was. He minced no words. So he had a relationship with the Yetiv Lev. He was much older, and he and the Yetiv Lev became Rebbe in Sigit, or Rav, and then he became like a Rebbe. And the Baruch Garlitz once came, and he saw he was taking kvitlach. He didn't want Baruch Garlitz to see him. Kvitlach is when you write your name on a piece of paper and give it to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe sees what is Ruach HaKodesh, where you come from, it gives you a bracha, and so on. Or Akopanim Schachter D'Shmaya, to see whatever each Rebbe sees in his kvittel. I don't know, but so Lamaisa he came. Another story was a lady once came with a kvittel, and to ask the Rebbe for a bracha of Shalom Bayis. By mistake, even though the kvittel was written out, she took out her the cleaning bill from the cleaners, gave it to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe looked at it and said, yeah, Shalom Bayis, Shalom Bayis. He says to her, tell me, if you picked up 35 skirts and 44 blouses today, and all your husband has is one pair of pants, how can you have Shalom Bayis? She goes, Rebbe, Ruach HaKodesh, I promise, I'll be better, right? And I was reading off the receipt from the thing. Okay, so that's also Ruach HaKodesh. Siyata D'Shmaya, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends everyone the right thing to read. So in all honesty, so those are Indian that, you see the person's name, and there's a divot through the kvittel, and so on, that things are there. My mechutin of mine, he went to the Rav Zecher Tzadik Levracha for a kvittel. Interesting story. And as he was there, he wrote out his name, and the Gabbai wrote out his name. And as he was about to go into the Rebbe, a call came into the Gabbai, and somebody called in to be masker a chayla, to mention the name of a person who's not well. So he took back the kvittel and wrote this name, so-and-so, L'Refuah Shalema. And the Rebbe then was very sick. It was after his stroke, and it looked like, if you didn't know, you may have thought he was out of it, and the Gabi would just read the names and go weiter. And the Rebbe, when he got to that name, the Rebbe stopped, and he kept pointing, what, this name shouldn't be on this kvittel, it should be a separate kvittel. It's not a joke, you just add it on, he knew that it doesn't belong there. They see things that we don't see. So in any event, so the Baruch Garlitzer sees that the Yetiv Lev is taking kvitlach. It's he also has Ruach HaKodesh. So he knew he was in trouble. So Baruch says, I want to tell you a story. He says, there once was a Sefer, he wrote a bunch of beautiful Megillas, and he came to America those years, the 1920s, 1910, to sell the Megillas. He's not selling any Megillah. What do I do now? I can't even pay for my, for the fear on steerage back to Europe. Someone gave him an eitzah. He said, in America, Megillah is not it's an ishkan article, the way they say. It's not a good selling thing. Mezuzahs that people buy. It's a shmira, you see it on your house. What is this? He has no mezuzahs. He has no parchment. So, what does this guy do? No, Yid gets a chanetz, unfortunately not in a very good way. He takes the Megillah, he cuts it up into a bunch of little pieces, makes a bunch of little scrolls, and says he's selling mezuzahs. What do they know? And he was very successful in his sale of the mezuzah. He went to the rabbi, didn't know much. I got to see if this is real parchment. Yes, it's real parchment. Beautiful letters. Yeah, okay. So after a couple of years, one guy, things aren't going good, so he writes a letter to someone at Yisrael. The man writes back, he should check his mezuzahs. So he brings the mezuzah into the rabbi. The rabbi looks at the top of the mezuzah, Parshan Dasa. Okay. So he says, he doesn't know if it's good or not, because let me check my mezuzah. See, he takes off his mezuzah, he sees Dalfan. So he says, okay. He says, yeah, it's good. Another guy comes running and he goes, I open my mezuzah, it says Parmashta on top. He says, if Parshan Dasa is good and Dalfan is good, Parmashta is also good. What's your problem? So that's what the Rebbe told him. You're taking fitla, right? You get the what he was trying to hint to him, what he was saying. But the reality is, in Yiddish there's a saying that b'makom she'ein ish is herring oich fish. If there's no person around, the Rebbe puts us in situations where we have to get up there and serve. And there were many times in situations the people that got up there to serve did outstanding jobs, because we ourselves don't know how great we are. We don't know the chashivas of a neshama. Someone just told us a story as we were sitting in the shiur beforehand of someone that's involved in chesed shalemis, and there was a person that was deranged, and he ran away and he disappeared, and it turned out that he died. And 13 years later, the medical examiner, they figured out that he was a yid and he was this missing person. So they made the connection, and the chesed shalemis went to get him. He's buried 13 years, and they found his body whole, completely whole. Do we know who has chusim and shemayim, why neshamas are sent down to this world, who meets his tafkid, who he is, that we don't understand. But we have to get out there and do what we have to do. And we have no way of knowing who is truly on top and who's not. So that's the inyan of really matzah. No procrastinating. You have 18 minutes. 18 is chai. Even though there's a shayla, it's 18 minutes, a shir mil. But just the remes shebadavar, 18 minutes is life. You can't roll your matzah and say, I'll go to sleep now, I'm not in the mood, I'm angry, I'm going to say, get that thing into the oven! That's what life is. Life is no time to waste. And there's another din with matzah. As long as you even after you pour the water and mix it with the flour, as long as you are working with the matzah, it never becomes chametz. So even if your time is up, as long as you are still working and trying to become better, it never becomes chametz. Then life goes on. I was learning a Mishnah before. With my kid, up to Masechtas Klayim. We always get the hardest Mishnayos before Pesach. I don't know why they work so. So the Mishnah says like this: Haroya yerek bekerem. This person is working on his vineyard and he sees vegetables. The vegetables are not supposed to be. It's climb. It's like Schachter. You can't have that. It's going to ruin the whole field. Everything is going to be aser. So if he says like this, Gewalt, I see vegetables planted in a vineyard. He says, you know what? When I get there, I'll take it out. What should I do? The din is it's mutter. It's no problem. And even though it would take him so long to get there that it was Moisef Messiah, it was a 200th. No problem. But if the guy says, vegetables in my vineyard. All right, enough time now. Let me finish. When I'll get back, I'll take care of it. Boom. It's aser. The Rebbe Shem says, look, I messed up. I'm setting my goals. I'm going to try to fix it. Then the Rebbe Shem says, I'm waiting for you. Then it's not becoming chametz. Show me you're trying. And it's not becoming chametz. And life goes on. What is life? What do we have? Do we really understand? What are you striving for? You want to make it rich? You want to make it money? There's a country, a little island called Cyprus, which is divided into two. The Greeks and the Turks are fighting since the times of Achashverosh for it. And they still have not settled it. So there's a whole tumult that they're asking for a bailout, like everyone else. Ma'az Chitim, Matanas Levyanim from the EU. So the EU told them, hey, listen here, you want us to bail you out? So we want you to do is, someone was telling me this about, it sounds like absurd, but they were told that for every person that has over 100,000, whatever the currency is over there, 9% take out of their account. They're like a one-time tax. Every person that has less than 100,000 will be really nice to them, only take out 6%. So the word got out, everyone ran to the banks to get their money out. There was a run on the banks, so they stopped the online banking. Then all of a sudden they made sure the ATMs ran out of cash. They said, don't fill it up again. And I don't know what's past an ATM machine, and there's a long line. There's a big sign over there, deposits only, no withdrawals. So I wish I could take one of those and put it on my front door. So there was massive panic. He says people were scared that if anyone understands what happened, the parliament said, no, we can't do this. That basically they were legalizing bank robbery. I mean, that's basically what we're saying. But, you think about this. I think that if we had Seichel, you realize what an ominous thing this is? I mean, if you told me this happened in Venezuela, told me it happened by, in the old Soviet Union, it happened in North Korea, it happened in some third world country. So I understand. This is the EU that is suggesting, listen, we're losing it, you know what I mean? We're spending, we don't have the money we're spending. There's going to have to come a time, we'll go to your bank account, just take off a bunch and say, I'm sorry. So I ask you, what do we have? Do you really own money? Do you realize how vulnerable your money is? It doesn't make a difference what you have in the bank, that it's not real. If you learn Perik Hazav and Schachter Bav Yetzias, so you will see that money at one point had intrinsic value, which meant there was a shekel and there was a cell, and if the shekel was chipped, after a certain point it no longer had value. And if it was chipped below a certain point, you weren't allowed to pass it on, and so on. But we don't have it anymore. The coins then became not intrinsic value, but like representative value. And then there was a new thing, checks, which is not even money at all. And then credit cards. Now, what's happening in the course of time, you think about this, there is less and less something you can look at. It's all trust and will, right? We're pressing buttons and we're transferring millions from one side of the world to the other. And no one is ever going to see money. And you don't even have the plastic credit card to hold on to. It's all emotional and to a certain degree. It's all based on what? And it says that by the Seder, you're supposed to take out your most beautiful kalim. And the Maharil says even borrowed kalim, take it out. Why borrowed kalim? You're not supposed to be too haughty. It's to show that everything in life is borrowed. Remember, down here. What is your whole energy? You got to make it big. I got to make it bigger. How are you valuing the chashivas of people? I had a friend, he once had a lot of money, and then he doesn't have a lot of money. So he said, I understand I lost my money. But why do people think I lost my seichel? Because when I had the money, people used to call all day for advice. When I lost the money, no one asks me advice anymore. We live in such a falsche Welt. So I told you last week that somebody was once sitting by the Satmarav, he was like a batchin, and he said that the 3 machzis hashekel that we give on Purim is a zeicher to the Abba Bonnet. So, but there's 4, and here there's only 3. He goes, the Chacham doesn't give, the Chacham takes. What does that mean that the Chacham takes? It means the Chacham understands. There's nothing really for me to give. It's like in camp. Remember you went to the supply hut and the kid got the job and you got your rackets and you got your balls. If you brought back the balls, you got more rackets the next day. And you had to get out and use it. And if you took your rackets and you were so scared it was going to get damaged, so you just sat on it the entire time and didn't play, he didn't give you the rackets either the next day. The Rebbe Hashem gives us our things in life to get out and to use it. And we're responsible for it. It's not really ours. We have to give it back afterwards. But I once heard a word from a very hush of a person. He asked me not to repeat his name, but if you understand the way the world is going, it's going much more from Maisa to Machshava. As it gets closer to Geula, it goes more from an Olam HaMaisa to an Olam HaMachshava. You don't walk out with a whole gold sack of coins. You walk out with someone presses a couple of buttons on a computer. Now, if you understand this, in the olden days, if you wanted to take a big donation from someone, he had to give you a lot of sack of coins that you had to schlep. Today, right, you hit the guy in the right time, boom, he sits down by his computer, presses a couple of buttons, or even on his phone, scans something in, and in a second, right, $5 million is transferred from his account to your account. What happens today is whatever happens in the world is only a facsimile of what's happening in Shemayim. So if you're riding on the street and you see something you ought not to see, and you fight off your taiva and you don't look at it, you want to think about something you ought not to think about, and you do your best. You're only a human being. It says, which means the first time it happens, it happens. I'm just trying not to do it again. So in that machshava, you're angry at someone. You want to come home, you are so angry, you want to scream and yell at your kids, you want the windows to come flying out. And you hold yourself back. You say it's before Yom Tov. You just transferred emotion. Do you understand? It's like you transferred billions in that machshava, in that attempt in your mind to try to sequester, a dangerous word today, but to try to sequester taiva and kas and all of the midas rois. By trying to push it off to someone else, what you're doing is, you're taking money, you're taking assets that you have from an unsecure account, and you're trying to change it to a secure account. Try to give it a little muscle. This time of the year, you see the Sheamus trucks all around. Now that is a good business. You schlep there with a bunch of bags, they charge you for the bags, and then they open it up and sell it. I mean, that's like amazing. You charge the person and then you sell it. So I was watching this guy. He comes with a bag of Sheamus. The guy opens it up, starts putting it out on the truck, and he goes, "Oh, my wife put that siddur in. What do I want? $1. I just gave it $1. Right? That's like, wow. So, do we have an appreciation for what we have? We have things, and the Rabbi Nisham says, "Look what I gave you in your life. You're not using it. You want me to charge you for what you have? You don't realize on your own what you have." So a person is in a certain situation of turmoil or in a siyonais, where he just got someone told me he just got a pink slip before Pesach, that he lost his job, but he was there for 22 years, and someone else came in and pushed him out, and here and there, stop. If you can take all of that anger and emotion and fear, and you can convert it into amunah and betachon and say, that's all. The big boss transferred me from one job to a different job. Is that so bad? If your boss came over to you and said, "Listen, I just got a call from the main office. You're going to be transferred to a different place." Okay, hopefully you'll even get better there. Maybe I'll get a promotion. Yeah, but that's not what happened. He's the boss and said you're fired. He's not. He's just a shliach from the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So he's also transferring you to a different place. Do you understand? It's famous, the Minchas Elazar used to say 3 stories. I'll share one of them with you. Which he said it's a school for Parnas every year of Pesach. Says the Paretz comes in, he sees a Yid doing very good with the taverns. He says, mashkala. Doing good, huh? You need Paretz. Because of me, you got a lot of money. He says, Paretz, you're the conduit for my Parnasa, and I have a karas atar. But the Parnasa comes from God. No, it comes from me. No, it comes from God. Okay? No one's allowed to do business with him. Period. Not a penny. No customer's allowed to come into a store. We'll soon see. And Ma'aser Shoy Kachayid, that the Paretz had a baby monkey. And this baby monkey he used to play with, it was like his pet. And the Paretz, he has the coins. And what he's doing with the coins is, in those days, remember, they would bite the coins. Why would they bite the coins? Because the coins had intrinsic value. So if it was very deep, you wanted to see how thick or thin it was. So the monkey doesn't understand what the Paretz is doing. He doesn't know this whole shmooze about intrinsic value or representative value. So the monkey sees he's supposed to eat coins. So the monkey swallows a whole bag of gold coins, and the monkey keels over, and that's his yard site. He's gone. So he picks up the monkey, and he's so angry, so he scared the living daylights out of the Jew. All the Jews were scared before Pesach, blood libels. So he throws the monkey through the dead monkey through the window, and the monkey hits the floor. And boom, all the coins come rolling out. Paretz doesn't know that. Comes to him the night of the Seder, and he's all lit up. He says, "Where'd you get this from?" He says, "You sent it to me." He says, "Strange how you packaged it, but you sent it to me." So why is that a school for Parnasa? Because it takes a lot of amunah. When you're in those big stop signs in life that says your life just stopped, you lost everything. No, who are you? I may be transferred, I may be promoted, and the koiches, the emotion that it takes. And that's why Pesach Tavshin Ayin Gimel never was and never will be. Because whatever your emotional state is at this moment, whatever nisyanis you're going through in your life is now, the Mesiras Nefesh that you have for this Yom Tov will never repeat itself, never ever again. It is a one-time opportunity. And the koiches that we have and we control our emotions, no malach in the world can. And we said it last week, it's like our theme. The Chassam Sofer says, what's the difference between matzah and chametz? Chametz blows up. Sometimes it blows up in gaiva, you get a swelled head. Hey, I'm in charge. Or it blows up and just explodes. Matzah just gets more crispy when it becomes. Everyone reacts differently. There's a famous mashal of a mother that took a child into a room and going through a difficult time. She had 3 boiling pots on the stove. She put in a carrot, an egg, and coffee. See, the carrot becomes soft. The egg becomes hard. Everyone reacts differently to crises. The coffee fills the whole room with an aroma. One of the biggest chesed organizations in Eretz Yisrael that gives out food for Yom Tov, countless foods. And today, 10,000 trucks were out there, fighting the road together with the Secret Service in Yerushalayim, trying to make their way to their destinations. So, you know how this guy started? He said there was one Pesach, he grew up in Yerushalayim, the kids were literally starving to death, they were fainting. And his father, they didn't have. Now, so he decided he's going to do something about it. He started one of the biggest chesed organizations that there are. It didn't have to be that way. He could have said, I'm finished. We were fainting, we were dying, I don't have anything to do with Pesach, I don't want to know anything about this. He took that emotion and converted it into bracha. That's the transfer of money. That's why the eating of matzah is a munah. The eating of matzah is refuah. Now, I kid you not. I once had a fellow over by my house for Shabbos. I asked him what he does. He told me he's a moil. And he gets into does a lot of places, out of town. And he says to me, people trust me because I have MD on my card. And so I'm a doctor, so people trust me. So I said, by the way, what kind of doctor are you? He tells me he's a psychiatrist. But no one knows that. They just see MD. So, So I ask you, who would you rather have as a moil? A 30-year experienced moil or a psychiatrist that's trying for the first time? Right? It's a world that we don't see. We don't understand this world. Our way of rating the world has no shaykhs to reality. So how do we get upset about reality when we don't know what the reality is? What's the story? There was that famous Schachter who calls Rothschild. This is well before phones were even created, but Rothschild already had a cell phone. And says to him, I got a shidduch for your daughter. You and the rest of the world. Boom, hangs the phone down. How did he call Rothschild? Okay. He knows what he's doing. Next, he goes into the Chase Manhattan Bank, or whatever its father company was in the 1800s. He says, listen, I have this yeshiva guy. Nice bacher. He's just had himself from Sechtes Bava Basra. And I'd like for him to be the president of the bank, please. Oh, really? We should hire him to be the president of the bank. Really? Yeah. By the way, he may be Rothschild's son-in-law. Oh, sure, no problem, We'd love to have him. Then he gets through to Rothschild again and goes, what do you want? He says, I have this bacher. So what? He says, by the way, he's being considered to be president of Chase Manhattan Bank. Oh, really? Yeah, so you're shidduch, right? If you think shidduchim don't happen this way, okay, it's a world that we live in. It's a world, the shidduchim aren't just shidduchim. Zivugim, the morale says, is everything we come into contact with. We don't really know what this world is all about. So why do we go crazy about chametz? Everything else becomes bottled b'shishim. There's certain things become bottled b'masayim, but that doesn't become bottled at all. It's because, says the Chidah and many others, chametz is the Yetzirah. And there is that one point where something has to become more crisp as opposed to grow. And there's no room for error. There has to be a point, whatever happens. So someone told me a beautiful story, that he went into Rabbi Leib Steinemann, Stark, and he was a Gevirish Yid, and he has, a son or a daughter, but like he has the, Shapchin's dream, and he has a whole long list, and it's not happening. So he says to Rabbi Leib, he says, I have to be mevater on something. I'm not going to have the perfect list. So what should I give up on? So he told him you should give up on the Mayoimru Habriyas. Give up on the, can't do that shidduch. What are people going to say? That's the first thing you should drop from your list. When you drop that from your list, you'll see. You'll be able to do a shidduch. Right? We live our lives on Mayoimru Habriyas. What are people going to say? And that's 99% of our anger, and 99% of our frustration, and 99% of everything else. Drop the Mayoimru Habriyas from your list, and you will see how many more shidduchim you can do in the course of life. Tzaddik explains the tzimtzum in our life, the lack of going away, the sign that says wrong direction, do not enter, is not a Kadosh Baruch Hu hurting us, it is a Kadosh Baruch Hu directing us. The famous marshal guy goes over to the peddler in town and says, how'd you marry off your daughter? He says, from the day she was born, every week I put in a coin into an iron box and that's it. And he goes, why don't you do the same thing? He goes, I tried, but I'm the town ganef. He says, I was able to get the money out of the box at the end of the week. That we don't know how the tzimtzumim in our life, but we think HaKadosh Baruch Hu is holding us back. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is directing us. So lest a person say, Ma neshtana alayla zeh mikol haleilos. My whole life, nothing went my way. What am I all excited about Pesach? Why should I think this year should be different? Why should it work now? And the answer is, Mitzrayim. And a certain amount of time had to go by. And every single year was accumulative until that point of Geula. If the Yidden would have stopped the year before Yetzias Mitzrayim and say we give up, we wouldn't be here today. So the fact that it didn't happen till now means nothing. The second thing is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chishev es haketz. So you know that famous, they used to have those little things you would bring, your sister would go to Niagara Falls and you got one of those little things with the snowflakes inside. So you play a game and predict where all the snowflakes are going to fall. But if somebody picks it up and shakes it, right? So in the last second, the snowflakes are going to fall very differently. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is taking us out of Mitzrayim. So until now the snowflakes were falling in the wrong place. It didn't look like it was going. What's the difference? HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is doing the Geula. And therefore, Chayiv Adam, a person is obligated B'chol dar v'dar lirai says atzmai kili hu yatsa mi Mitzrayim. You have to say to yourself, all the years of Mitzrayim it didn't work, but 1 year it worked, and that was the year it was supposed to work. The fact that my tefillahs weren't answered all these years means nothing. There's 1 year that it's going to work. There's 1 year, but my mazel, you see, my mazel is just a rotten mazel. It doesn't happen. I'm not going to do it. It's not going to work. I'm not going to change who I am. Someone told me a terrible story. Make believe you don't hear it. It said a lady gets on a bus someplace and the driver says to her, you know, your baby is terribly ugly. She's so angry. She walks to the back of the bus. She's furious. She says, what happened? The driver insulted me. Driver insulted me. She says, you go tell the driver he has no right to say that. I'm so insulted, I can't even talk to him. So the man says, listen, let me hold your monkey, and you go tell the driver that what he said is terrible, you know? Guy says, I'm not going to change. I'm ugly. I'm this. I'm a shlamazel. I'm not going to change. This is who I am till now. I'm never, ever going to change. No. Not when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is himself taking us out of Mitzrayim, because the same HaKadosh Baruch Hu made you, recreates you, and that's why Chayiv Adam Liray says Atzmai Kilu Hu Yotza Mi Mitzrayim, that he is the one coming out of Mitzrayim. The Afterov, once when he finished his Seder, so he said, who over here knows that Tefillah Asher that you say after the Megillah Esther? He said, who knows it Baal Peh? Who knows it Baal Peh? So one man, you know, in the back, the little villager, says, I know it Baal Peh. Everyone laughed. No, really. And he says the whole thing Baal Peh. He says, I don't know about that, so I can't tell you, but he says the whole thing about that. So the Abdurrah said, you will mevatel so many gzeiros now. So he said to him, how do you know it Baal Peh? So he says, you know, I'm so confused with the Siddur. I don't know what you're supposed to daven when. So what I do is, I open the Siddur, and I just say everything from cover to cover every single morning. I say, Hashem, take whatever you want. You know what I mean? I say everything. I say Yetzias, Shavasa B'Tamas, and, you know. I say, Hashem, take it. So every day I say Asher Heini. You know. We love to have control. We'd love to know where our tefillahs are going and how it's working. But to be able to say, listen, Rabbi Shem, I'm davening, and you take the good tefillah. Somewhere there's going to be a good tefillah. With that, we are mevatel gezeiros. That we're mevatel gezeiros. You know, if there's frequent flyers, miles. You know, Pesach, you get a lot of frequent flyer miles. You get a lot of extra points because the nesiyinus are so much greater. Somebody once said, the Rebbe Melech, you know, he wants you to sit down in the sand between ants. The ants would bite his skin, till there was nothing left to bite. And he would see, you see, Mailach is so bad, even the ants don't want to bite him. So no, there was one frum guy in yeshiva that was saying, you know, that's the way to do it. And the Rebbe saw him and said, no, don't you dare. So he said, if the Rebbe Melech did it, why don't I do it? So he said that the Rebbe Melech was so happy in his life, that if he didn't do this, he needed this to be able to adjust himself. He says, we just have to live life. Today, just live going through life and smiling and dealing with the problems and the tzaras. That's the ants biting. That's the same Gilgal Shalak. He didn't have that, so he had to come on to this. The Rebbe Hashem gives us double and triple when things are going away. So the Gemara tells us about the Sararugei Malchus, Rav Shimon and Rabbi Shmuel. One of them said, can you tell me why this is happening to us? Why are we being murdered? And the other one said, Shema, maybe once you were about, somebody knocked on your door and said, I have a din Torah, and you said, let me finish my tea first. Nichantani. Guy knocks on your door, and you know, it's not off hours, and you tell him, wait a second till I finish my tea after a hard day's work. For that is chayiv misa? So the answer is no. This was a gzeira. But there are times in our life where you feel so down, and now this guy is nudging me, and now I have to smile, and you know what? I'm going to smile. That could be mevatel gzeiros. That could be mevatel the gzeiros that are sealed on all fronts. And there really is no time like before Pesach, where we have to be able to believe this, have to understand things aren't going away, they're going away. What's that famous story you've said it many times, when they were building the tunnel under the French, under the British Channel. So they made up a bunch of contractors, and one Yidel of Moshe's construction company comes in, he puts in a bid for 10,000 francs. He says, how could you possibly do that? He says, you know, I have a shovel, and I'm going to dig. So you're going to do it by yourself? No, Yankel, he lives in London, he's going to dig from his side. He says, what if the two of you don't meet under it? He said, then you'll have two tunnels. He says, you know, it's even better. Do we understand that when we don't meet our two tunnels, it's never the same. You know why we read the Mishkan every single day? The Mishkan was never the same. You constantly took it apart, put it back someplace else. Life is never the same. This Pesach never was, never will be. Those Rav once said, why do we don't make a bracha when we burn the chametz? We only make a bracha by beer chametz. So we know the Shainim and Achronim, there's reasons why. He said like this, To burn out your chametz, who can make a bracha? Who can say we burnt out all the chametz that's within us? But to try to look, to say, Hashem, I'm going to try to be better, that you can make a bracha on. That everyone can do. Shabbat Rav said that in his town, there was a tzaddik nister. Everyone knew he was a hidden tzaddik. How everyone knows about a hidden tzaddik, I'm not sure, but that's the way it was. And he was a watchmaker, so he wanted to get a bracha from him. So he once went and broke his watch. He said, I'll make believe my watch broke, I'll get a bracha. And he came into him, so he said, you broke your watch bedafka. That's the problem with a hidden tzaddik. Right? So he said, you give me a bracha? No. He said, can you tell me a vart? He said, I'll tell you a vart. He says, where do we learn bedikas chametz from? So the Gemara has a whole zayra shabbat, chippus meineres. Gemara listen to the word chippus in the Torah. And where does that word? That's when Menashe came, and that's when the Mitzrayim chased down the brothers, and they found the becher. He says, who was checking for the becher? Menashe. Who's the one that put the becher in the Yaman sack? Menashe. You put it in there. What are you looking for? He says, sometimes it comes to Pesach, we feel like we're in a rut. I messed up so bad with my family. I messed up so bad with my boss. And I have no one to blame but myself. Yeah? And you're going to get out of this. And life is going to go on. Yeah, but I did this to myself. That's right. That's where B'dikas Chometz is learned from. From something you did to yourself. Kiluhu yotzim Mitzrayim, and you're going to pick up the pieces, and life is going to go on. Yachol ne Rosh Chodesh, said the Beis Yisrael, and many others say it also. Maybe I should wait to Rosh Chodesh, big ha'or is a new moon. No. At least for the sun to come up. No. When there are steers and contradictions in our life, that is Pesach. I deal with it head on. I'm not running away from the reality. I'm dealing with the reality. Just in case you ran out of things to buy for your family, so I read someplace that there's a British company that has a mattress that you could buy for $175,000. Only 60 are being made. A lot more comfortable, yes, than chairs here by the shear. It's made out of 1,600 miles of silk, special cashmere, special silk, and the springs are made out of horsetails. It takes 4 months to order. I heard that if you order before tomorrow morning, you get a free Nagelwasser schissel with it, so you may want to hop around. Now, if I had $175,000 to spend, I'm not sure I would spend it on a mattress. Then I was thinking to myself, how much do people spend for a good night's sleep, right? A guy, Rahman al-Islam, needs a doctor, a guy needs advice, a guy needs, right? People spend more than that, Rahman al-Islam, for a good night's sleep. You know what Pesach is? Pesach is, you don't have to say Kriya Shema Lamita. You don't have to worry about any mazika. If you do this right, if you engage the Seder right, if you come in and you say, whatever it is, I believe Hashem, there's a Yetzias Mitzrayim for me that never existed, and that's the Inyan, your Isaac and Yetzias Mitzrayim, Achi Yechatefena Shina, until sleep overwhelms you, then you have that mattress. Then you had the Yismach Yisrael said, if someone doesn't believe that a Kadosh Baruch Hu accepts his tshuva 100% by the Seder, he is the Rosh of the Agadah. And that doesn't mean everything is hunky-dory. And it doesn't mean you come into the Seder without Nisyanis. The Heilige Rishon once said, Bolam, they asked him when he was being arrested, and he was, at least it looked like on the outside that he was shaken. They said, they asked him how he's supposed to be above it. He said, it says if you swallow more, you're not Yaitza. You have to be a realist. You have to realize there's a crisis. But you deal with the Mara, you connect it to the Matzah, then the Mara and the Matzah become part of the same mitzvah, and then you're Zaycha to get out of it. So I think just for the school of this story, I'll quickly say it over. That there was Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zonnefeld, was Rav in Yerushalayim, and there was a poor orphan boy. He was born very late in his marriage, and his mother died at childbirth, and his father didn't know how to take care of him, spoiled him, and he wound up on the streets, and he terrorized the entire city. There's one thing his father always did with him. It was before Pesach, he went crazy over chametz. The two of them sat on the floor with a toothbrush and cleaned every little nook and cranny in the house. Ma'aseh, the kid is on the street. The father passed away from his yisurim and from pain, and he's terrorizing all of Yerushalayim. He belongs to the wrong chevra. But one thing, it came before Pesach. He would run to Rabbi Yosef Chaim's house and say, "Spare me from chametz. I'm scared." That's like some kind of a trick. He wants to get into your house. It's a Trojan horse. He's going to bring his chevra. They're going to rob you. And over Pesach, he kept him in his house, and he was stood there by a corner. He was a nice little boy. He was scared to eat in anyone's house in case it's chametz. People said to him, "You're scared to eat in my house. You kind of, you're Schachter, you're scared to leave him alone." They said every year Pesach, his friends already knew, it was already ingrained in his heart. One of the days, he picked the wrong guy to steal from. It was some Turkish ambassador, and they arrested him. And you weren't, you know what the Turkish police did for someone who was caught with Ganeva. So Rabbi Yosef Chaim ran to try to bail him out. And they said, him? Rabbi Yasser Chaim said, you don't know the circumstances that he was raised under, and you don't know the Turkish police, and with great Mesiras Nefesh, he bailed him out at risk to his own life. And he was sincerely moved, and he said, Rebbe, it's going to be Pesach all year. Okay? And Rabbi Yasser Chaim felt he was sincere. And he wound up writing a shidduch to a young girl, an orphan girl, couldn't do a shidduch. And Rabbi Yasser Chaim didn't lie to her. He said, this is the matzif. He says, I can't tell you for sure, but I really think he's sincere. And they got married. And life was going good for a while, but then married life has its nisyanis. And he went back to his friends, and he came home at night, and he was drunk, and he terrorized her. And the situation wasn't good, and Rabbi Yasser Chaim offered her protection. She said no. She ate by somebody else. She lived in someone else's house all of her life. Enough is enough. She can't. She'll rather live this way. But at least she has her own home. Comes before Pesach, he runs home one day and says, we got to start cleaning for Pesach. She's like, now you clean for Pesach. Yesterday you were robbing the liquor store, now you want to clean for Pesach. But they told her, no, and she went into La La Land. They spent the whole day cleaning the little cubicle for Pesach, and they went to get the food from the chicken that they gave out, the one chicken, and they told her, it just lasts till after Pesach. She says she'll take it when she has. Comes the first night Pesach, and they're all excited, and he's like, for Chametz, it's like a nuclear bomb. He's cleaned the house again and again, and he's sitting, and he calls her in, and he says, no, bring in the pot of soup, the big pot of soup with the chicken, Shulchan Aruch. She's so proud, and she opens up the cover, and she shrieks. There's a piece of wheat floating around in the soup. She says like this, if I tell him, he can kill me. He can go mad. If I don't tell him, he'll eat chametz. And he walks in, what's the problem? She says, I can't lie to him. She points to it. He sees it, he turns deathly white. He runs, he grabs the pot, she says, Shema Yisrael. And he runs out. He runs to Rabbi Yasser Chaim. Rabbi Yasser Chaim is sitting there, he comes barging in with his pot of chicken. And he says, Rebbe! And Rabbi Yasser Chaim looks at the thing, chametz doesn't become bottle. This is a Kodesh Nefashis. So Rabbi Yasser Chaim says, he says, I just drank wine and I'll let a paskin. Sure, it's good, but I can't paskin. So I'll tell you what, you take my chicken, I'll take yours, and in the morning I'll tell you that it's kosher. So he runs to his family, starts grabbing the chicken off the plate. It's Kodesh Nefashis, give me a chicken. He says, he's not stupid. He says, Rebbe, I got it. So Rabbi Yasser Chaim follows him out, and in his greatness he says to him, you would have never found this piece of wheat in that pot. And your wife risked her life, so you shouldn't eat chametz. You understand that? He was never so embarrassed before. He walked into the house, she was ready to jump. And he fell to the floor and burst into tears and asked her mechila for whatever she did. They came back to Rabbi Yasser Chaim. I guess he wanted to show that they're okay. And when Rabbi Yasser Chaim said one of his Einichlach to open the door for Shafai Chabascha, they opened up the door, and he comes running, he says, Eliyahu Navi is coming, he's even coming with his wife, I'm telling you, you're going to see. And they come in, and he looks at their faces, and he chaps already what happened. And he says, yeah, Eliyahu Navi really did come, because he's v'heishav leivavais alvanim v'leivanim alavaisam. The kayach of Pesach has, we skip over all the tzaras, skip over your history. There's a new world waiting for you, if we understand this Yom Tov correctly.